This sharp, red-hot triangular cone is a terrifying instrument of torture. The man picks up a candle and applies wax to the surface of the iron. The strong man next to him lifts up the victim. The tip is already aimed at his vital area. What trouble has this person caused to endure such a brutal punishment? His name is Karamura. He is an anarchist, fighting for the freedom and rights of the people. During an operation to free political prisoners, he met Alina. They share a common goal and pursuit, leading the organization to rob the rich and help the poor. Their new target is a person named Yurk. There was a fire at Yurk's refinery. Thousands of workers were severely burned. Yurk failed to comfort the families of the victims. He even shifted all the blame onto the workers. Karamura forces Yurk to reveal the location and password of a safe. He opens the box and counts the cash. His companion intends to teach Yurk a lesson, so he uses a hemp rope to trap his head, drag him to the side, then throw the rope to the second floor. The person above catches the rope and hoists Yurk up. Several people watch him struggle for a while. Then they cut the rope. Karamura instructs Yurk to pay for the burial of the deceased out of his own pocket and to provide compensation to each of the families. Just as the operation is about to succeed, Enzo, a subordinate, steps forward and cues body. This action seriously disrupts the plan. After getting into the car, Karamura punches Enzo. Not only did he cause the families to lose their compensation, but he might also attract the attention of the authorities. Several people immediately return to the base. Karamura instructs the driver to monitor the entrance. Unexpectedly, as soon as they enter the house, Enzo pulls out a gun and aims it at Karamura. It turns out this guy wants to take Karamura's place as the leader. While they argue incessantly, a mysterious person is approaching the base. The people inside are unaware of the impending danger. Two factions have already formed. A big battle is about to break out. Suddenly, the door makes a slight noise. The driver enters. The next second, he is covered in blood and dies. Karamura takes the opportunity to attack Enzo. He tackles Alina and hides in the tow room. Right after that, screams can be heard from outside. In the meantime, there are also wild animal growls mixed in. Karamura turns his head and finds Alina shot in the side abdomen. If not treated promptly, it will be difficult for her to survive. Karamura returns to the living room. The scene is in chaos. Everyone is lying in a pool of blood. Some even have been embedded into the wall by external force. Just as Karamura is puzzled, a decapitated body falls from above. Curiously, he looks up to see. He discovers on the ceiling a man hanging upside down. In a critical moment, Alina shoots the person hitting him. The mysterious person isn't dead. Karamura shoots him again, blowing his head apart. Alina dies after firing a few more bullets. Karamura hasn't yet adapted to the death of his loved one. The mysterious person crawls back up. Karamura has never witnessed such a scene before. He immediately flees. Unfortunately, he runs into a dead end. The mysterious person is about to catch up. Karamura forcefully stomps on the floor beneath his feet. He jumps into an underground river to escape. On the other side, the mysterious person, Sasha, stays at the base. He feeds on the blood of the dead bodies. With the replenishment of blood, his decayed face gradually returns to normal. His companion takes out a bomb. They prepare to destroy the base and clean up the scene. From their conversation, it can be understood that they are the Third Bureau under the rule of Tsarist Russia. Sasha looks at Alina's beautiful face. Suddenly, an idea comes to his mind. He takes Alina back to the headquarters. He transforms her into a vampire and keeps her. On the other side, injured Karamura goes to find an old friend. He endures the intense pain while cleaning his wounds. After a short rest, Karamura prepares to investigate Sasha's background. He wants to find out why he is not afraid of bullets. The high-ranking official, who secretly cooperates with Karamura, is unwilling to get into trouble. He terminates the cooperation between the two sides. Karamura bursts into the Senate. In front of everyone, he tells about yesterday's bizarre encounter. Most of them laugh after hearing it. They don't believe Karamura's words. Only an old man with white hair looks different. Karamura is driven out of the meeting room by soldiers. He can only go back to the hotel. As soon as he enters, he is grabbed by someone. Karamura's enemies are waiting here. They are about to beat him up. Karamura fights back desperately. He struggles to break free from two strong men. He charges forward and engages in a fight with them. Karamura throws away the opponent's handgun. The accomplice tries to pick it up and launch a surprise attack. Fortunately, Karamura reacts quickly and pins the person down. He kicks the table leg and smashes it. He forcefully crushes the opponent's head. Then he knocks out the accomplice and throws him into the fireplace. Now there is only one leader left. Karamura lifts him up. He impales him on a triangular cone. Before he can catch his breath, the person in the fireplace actually climbs back up. He walks to the door, but he is killed by the white-haired old man. The old man's name is Peter. He knows Karamora is not lying. There are indeed immortal creatures in the world. The organization Peter is part of planned the assassination of Tsar Alexander II. However, the emperor survived 6 assassination attempts. He survived even after being shot 5 times. He could easily escape explosions. In the end, it was an engineer who made a bomb using pure silver and successfully killed Tsar Alexander II. The two of them decide to work together to solve this matter. Karamora wants to expose the existence of vampire, so he finds a newspaper office. He uses coercion and enticement to recruit a bespectacled person named Dino. Every news story needs evidence. Based on Peter's intelligence, they take a train together to the United States. It is said that the original vampire resides there. They arrive at a cabin in the outskirts. Peter gives Dino a film camera. He instructs him to start filming from the moment they enter. The three of them lift the tattered curtain and enter the cabin. Peter walks to the bed and pulls back the blanket. Underneath lies a shriveled female corpse. He cuts his palm and puts it into her mouth. The mummy sucks a few mouthfuls of fresh blood. Surprisingly, she regains some vitality. Peter asked her about the matters regarding the vampire. The woman spoke about the local vampire history. She also mentioned that her sister was lying beside her. Peter pulled back the curtain. Sure enough, he saw another mummy. The two sisters had been alive for hundreds of years. As a reward for her sharing the history, Peter agreed to help the woman end her suffering. He took out a small silver knife. He stabbed her in the heart. The three of them captured valuable footage. They set fire to the dilapidated cabin. They immediately set off to return to Russia. On the other side, there was Alina. She didn't want to become a vampire and consort with demons, so she tried various methods to end her life. She tried everything she could, but each time ended in failure. Even jumping off a building was in vain. Sasha kindly reminded her not to waste her efforts. Only silverware and fire can kill vampires. The Count knew this. Sasha secretly turned humans into vampires. Afraid of being discovered by the Third Bureau, he decided to personally kill Alina. Unexpectedly, when he opened the door and looked, she unexpectedly set herself on fire. The Count quickly extinguished the fire. He gave Alina a cup of fresh blood, help her return to normal. The Count was moved by Alina's strong will to die. He said that the vampires had signed an agreement with the Tsar. The Tsar provided them with blood. In return, the vampires used their special abilities to help the government maintain peace. The Count handed her a silver bullet pistol, letting Alina make her own choice. Sasha was curious why the Count didn't act. He explained that in Alina he saw the shadow of Saint Joan of Arc. This person might be able to help the vampires grow stronger. Meanwhile, Alina walked out of the room. She decided to join the Third Bureau to maintain world peace. Her first case involved a series of murders targeting young girls. She suggested being the bait herself to lure out the sadistic killer. Alina's plan quickly worked. A young man called her over, and he drugged her with an anesthetic. When Alina regained consciousness, she found herself tied to an iron bed frame. The killer cut Alina's clothes, took a surgical knife and cut her skin. The next moment, her blood flowed back, and her wounds healed. Alina stared at his artery, and the vampire's bloodlust erupted. She broke free, tackled him, and then Sasha burst in. Alina couldn't accept her bloodthirsty nature. Sasha comforted her, saying she would adapt in due time. At this moment, Karamora and the others have already returned to Russia. As long as the newspaper comes out, they can convince the public of the existence of vampires and establish armed resistance against them. The unexpected happened so quickly. Dino was brutally killed shortly after parting ways with them. All the employees of the newspaper were also killed. To be able to eliminate so many people in such a short time, it must have been the work of the vampires. He realized the situation was dangerous. He warned Karamora to cut their losses in time. With just the two of them, they couldn't stop the vampires. Peter chose to withdraw from the operation. Karamora was unwilling to give up easily. He decided to recreate the bomb from the past. Yet chemistry is not something you can learn by reading a few books. Just as Karamora was feeling lost, a person named Jane came to visit. She was also an anarchist. She was willing to help Karamora accomplish his great mission. As she spoke, she brought out a box of money. Jane indeed had ways to make money. With financial support, they could form their own team. Karamora accepted the information from her. He planned to kidnap a tycoon named Nobel. This person was a chemical genius, but he had tuberculosis and wouldn't live long. At night, Karamora, along with Jane, hijacked a car. They easily took care of the bodyguards and captured Nobel along with the car. Karamora had someone take photos and sent them to Nobel's uncle, demanding a ransom from the oil tycoon. Then they asked Nobel to make a bomb. This guy was very resilient. Jane tried every means, including violence. She even used seduction. Nobel refused to make weapons. In the end, Karamora took action. He explained to the other party the bomb wasn't intended to create panic. He just wanted to strengthen the team and fight against the vampire organization. Nobel became very excited. He was also close to death, so he decided to join Karamora. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. It turned out to be Jane's informant. During negotiations with Nobel's uncle, they discovered that Karamora was worth more, because the vampire clan was willing to pay a large sum to capture him. Karamora escaped with Nobel. They evaded pursuers along the way. They fled to a train station nearby. Surprisingly, Jane caught up with them. Karamora tried to persuade her to join them, but she was unwilling to betray her informant, so he had no choice but to eliminate Jane. He took Nobel and left in the car. On the other side, the criminal Alina, arrested, surprisingly was released due to lack of evidence. She ignored Sasha's advice and went to the murderer's house. It turned out that this person was of noble descent. The parents knew their son had massacred innocent people. There was intentional indulgence. Sasha initially wanted to stop Alina and make her comply with the laws. Unexpectedly, Alina convinced him. He allowed Alina to kill the entire family of the murderer. The room was filled with blood. Alina drained the murderer dry. She took out a silver bullet pistol and aimed it at herself. She still couldn't accept her vampire identity. Karamora took Nobel to the black market to purchase explosive materials. Unexpectedly, they encountered an acquaintance. It was York, the person from the oil refinery. Surprisingly, he had died just as he was about to recognize Karamora. Nobel handed the goods to York, swiftly diverting his attention. As soon as York left, Nobel suddenly pulled out a gun. It turned out he recognized York too. Nobel had collaborated with him before. He knew that this person was a villain. Karamora caught Nobel and calmed him down. The important thing was to build an armed team first, but where to find fearless and skilled fighters? Karamora used various channels and found suitable candidates. First, there was Leo, an anarchist. Then there was Jean, the bald poet. Although he lacked combat skills, he was incredibly talented. Finally, Karamora rushed to the execution ground with a gun. He rescued a pair of siblings on death row. The siblings were sentenced to death for resisting oppression. They had killed a noble, which led to their death sentence, and so the main team was assembled. They immediately began their operation. Karamora learned that York went to the bathhouse every Wednesday, so they sent two people to pump hypnotic gas through the chimney. Everyone in the bathhouse fainted. The main team took the opportunity to infiltrate. They wanted to secretly move York out. Several people lifted the fat man and carried him. A woman stood at the door. She sought help from the lookout guy. The other person kindly let her in. The woman led a strong man to break in. She pulled out a hairpin and stabbed the lookout guy fiercely. Communication from the lookout was cut off. The main team was caught off guard and got beaten. Both sides took cover and started shooting at each other. They remained deadlocked for a while without any results. The woman changed her strategy. She wanted to convince one of Karamora's people to betray. Surprisingly, Leo raised his hand and stood up. He even pointed out the positions of the others. The woman immediately ordered to open fire. Meanwhile, Leo took advantage of the chaos and ran out. Karamora shot York on the ground. He woke up in pain. He stood up and started biting people randomly. York pushed away the woman's underlings. He went to the side and broke the pipe. A large amount of steam sprayed out. York jumped onto the wall and launched a surprise attack. The white steam disrupted everyone's vision. The visibility was less than 1 meter. York took advantage of his vampire abilities and went on a killing spree. Screams filled the air for a moment. Meanwhile, Leo ran back to the base. He called for Nobel to grab explosives and come help. The massacre in the bathhouse was not yet over. The woman witnessed her subordinates dying tragically. She held her gun and surveyed the area. Coincidentally encountered Karamora. Before she could even ask a question, she was dragged away by York. Karamora, in order to lure out the enemies, deliberately bit her palm. York smelled the familiar scent of blood. He saw through Karamora's identity. He stood up and greeted the other person. It turned out that before that operation, York had already bribed Enzo. He intentionally pretended to be dead after being shot. Karamora saw a figure in front of him. He immediately fired his gun, but it was just someone York grabbed randomly. Karamora ran out of bullets. In a critical moment, Nobel arrived. He threw a bomb casually. Karamora hurriedly jumped into the bathtub. A loud explosion occurred. When he climbed out of the water, York had already been blown into mincemeat. Let's see how Alina is doing. She didn't take her own life, because Sasha brought a message. Vampires can potentially become human again, but only one person can do it. Sasha set off with Alina to find the person. The two of them walked together. They were preparing to replenish their energy at a tavern by the roadside. Unexpectedly, there were vampire hunters hidden here. Because the innkeeper had just slaughtered a wild boar, the scent of blood aroused Alina's desire. This also exposed her identity. The boss noticed that something was amiss, and instructed the subordinates to replace Alina's glass with a silver one. The other party gets burned upon touching it. The hunters in the inn quickly stand up. Sasha immediately knocks down the hunters around him. He grabs Alina and runs out of the tavern. Their carriage is set on fire by the innkeeper. They run on foot towards the forest. Strange roars can be heard in the distance. Sasha bites Alina's hand. He instructs her to run in the opposite direction. The two of them split up and run towards the forest. A massive wild man catches up with Alina. In a critical moment, Sasha takes a shortcut to come over. He pulls out his cane sword and slashes at the wild man. Unexpectedly, the opponent is too strong. Even with a broken arm, it manages to knock Sasha down. Alina pulls out a handgun and launches a surprise attack. The wild man is knocked down to the side. Sasha's neck is badly bitten. He was about to kill the wild man in anger, but he is stopped by a man's shout. The wild man becomes submissive upon seeing him. It turns out that this man is the saint Sasha was looking for. Besides that, he also has a resounding title, Russian mystic Rasputin. He heals Sasha's neck. He asks the two of them to return to the capital with him. Meanwhile, Karamora is planning the next operation. Jean, having witnessed the existence of vampires, chooses to withdraw. It has been confirmed now. Nobel's dynamite can't kill vampires. They need more ammunition reserves. Karamora and Nobel go to the black market for trading. They fall into an ambush. They are led by the seller into the basement. There is timed explosive placed there. Fortunately, Nobel successfully finds the right fuse and disables it. The two of them shoot and break down the window of the basement. They threaten the seller. Judging by the size of the bomb just now, it can be inferred that they have an abundant supply source. Karamora forces out the supplier's location through interrogation. They immediately proceed to the destination. He is taken to the table by the opponent's henchman. Karamora has good luck. He wins abundantly. He successfully purchases the dynamite. He immediately starts the second phase of the plan. In order for the team to get close to the enemy, they must learn court etiquette. Karamora finds Kathy for help. After her patient training, several members make rapid progress. Tomorrow, Kathy will host a birthday party. At that time, local nobles will be present. The members disguise themselves as waiters to infiltrate the banquet. They mix silver fluoride in the drinks. Through this method, they identify vampires. Karamora also needs to be present to supervise. Before the banquet starts, he receives a package. Inside, Gear's severed hand is enclosed. Someone requests to meet him in person. Karamora can only be absent from this operation. Negotiate with the person who kidnapped Pierre. Because of this little incident, he missed Alina. Alina was unexpectedly present at the banquet. Kathy immediately recognizes the person. She was about to approach and confirm, but she was stopped by her fiancé. Just when the person was making a heartfelt confession in front of all the guests, a person wearing a red cloak appears. He walks to the front and opens his clothes, revealing the bomb inside. The next moment, a loud explosion occurs. The scene is in chaos. Basically, only the vampires survive. Meanwhile, Karamora, who was negotiating, he pretends to accept the conditions, willing to work for the person who kidnapped Peter. He learns about the incident at the banquet halfway. Karamora becomes furious. He immediately knocks out the person in the car. When he returns to the base, he learns that Kathy died in the explosion. Karamora falls into self-blame. Leo saved a noble during the explosion. Surprisingly, the person is the Prime Minister. He didn't know the person was a vampire when he acted. The Prime Minister appoints Jean as his personal bodyguard. He gives the person an opportunity to get close. Due to this unexpected explosion, Karamora and Alina take different paths. Karamora becomes determined to eradicate vampires. Alina, however, was disappointed with the humans who caused the explosion. Because her close friend was injured, she decides to faithfully follow Sasha. On the other side, Leo infiltrates by the side of the Prime Minister, taking advantage of his position, completing the final assassination mission. He also pays a painful price for it. The Third Bureau takes over the investigation, wanting Leo to confess the mastermind behind it. Sasha punishes him. After Leo shouts loudly, he kicks the switch and hangs himself on the spot. Karamora has just attended Kathy's funeral. The mastermind behind Peter's kidnapping, David, appears. He is the organizer of the banquet explosion. His purpose is to make Karamora work for him. David also kidnaps Nobel and others, making Karamora choose between two options: joining his team or sacrificing himself for the freedom of others. After hesitating, Karamora pulls the trigger. He indeed chooses to sacrifice himself, but there is no bullet inside. In the end, Karamora accepts David's proposal. The two sides sit at a table and have a conversation. Karamora gathers information from the other side, confirming Sasha's whereabouts. He immediately arranges a team to encircle and capture him. However, Sasha is not an ordinary person. Those few people are not his match. Fortunately, Karamora arrives in time, holding a spiked club. He strikes the opponent. Sasha doesn't linger on fighting. He jumps over the wall and runs away. He enters the apartment through the window. He quickly rushes down the stairs. Karamora's people quickly catch up. They corner Sasha in the elevator. Unexpectedly, they are bitten and covered in blood by him. At this moment, Karamora arrives with a Maxim machine gun. After a burst of intense gunfire, he steps on the scattered shell casings and opens the elevator door. Unexpectedly, Sasha has already disappeared. Karamora looks up. Sure enough, he sees Sasha holding a rope. He fires a shot towards the sky. Immediately after, the opponent bites through the steel cable. The elevator rapidly descends. When Karamora stands up, holding his head, Sasha has already escaped. He drags himself back to his residence with serious injuries. Alina helps dig out the silver bullets. After spending time together day and night, they have long had hidden feelings for each other. The vampires are really facing internal and external troubles at this time. They are not only watched by Karamora and others, they are also being corroded from within by Rasputin. He relies on the power of a saint. He wanders among the vampire aristocracy. He even claims, as long as they sleep with him, they can gradually become human again. Rasputin has also deceived a meddlesome vampire, making him go naked to find the clan leader. He embarrassed the leader thoroughly. The leader becomes extremely angry. Urgently assemble the troops, order them to kill Rasputin. On Karamora's side, this time, missing the opportunity to kill Sasha, making Karamora feel doubly frustrated. He doesn't know Alina had already teamed up with Sasha. Peter advises Karamora not to let hatred blind him. Don't antagonize the vampires anymore. Karamora believes escaping is not the solution. He goes alone to negotiate with David. Unexpectedly, he is rejected by the other party. David feels Karamora's actions are too childish. Without money or power, he can never overthrow other leaders. Karamora quietly pulls up a wire, swiftly strangling David to death with it, avenging Kathy and seeking justice. The next moment, David rises up. It turns out he is also a vampire. David grabs Karamora and beats him violently. He lifts him up in the air, then throws him forcefully to the side. At a critical moment, a lightning flashes. It turns out Nobel arrives with a new invention. The former high-ranking employer is also pressed. Karamora takes a silver knife and cuts his palm. He feeds fresh blood to David in front of him. Finally, the employer believes in the existence of vampires. Karamora doesn't kill David because he provides useful information. The truth is that the party explosion was orchestrated by the vampire high-ranking officials. They needed to create a terrorist attack and then emerge to solve the problem. In order to establish their authority, David is just a pawn oppressed by the vampires. He is willing to assist Karamora in his actions. He even takes him to meet Rasputin. The wild man that attacked Alina that day is also present. Such species are called blood beasts. They survive by feeding on vampire blood. Rasputin also wants to eliminate the vampires. He tells Karamora many blood beasts are imprisoned in dungeons. To deal with vampires, they need to release them. The inauguration ceremony of the vampire leader is about to begin. They can use this opportunity to infiltrate the inner circle. Several days later, Sasha learns about Karamora's whereabouts. He immediately rushes over to capture him. He was a step too late. Karamora had already been captured by the deputy of the Third Bureau and was about to be taken back to the dungeon for imprisonment. This was all part of Karamora's plan, just to get close to the blood beasts inside the dungeon. He had bribed the prison guard who delivered meals in advance and had buried a bomb in the food container and brought it in. The explosion sounded instantly. The doors of the dungeon were completely blown open. Karamora ran deep into the cells. He dealt with the cell guards and released the imprisoned blood beasts. Meanwhile, Nobel and the others were deployed outside. preparing the recruited people in the city for an uprising. David led a group to assassinate the new leader of the vampires. Everything was going according to Kaer Morha's plan. The blood beasts pushed open the Iron Gate and attacked the Count and others blocking their way. Unexpectedly, Alina intervened and saved the leader. Rasputin also emerged to cause trouble. As soon as he appeared, he took control of all the blood beasts. With a wave of his hand, the blood beasts changed direction. All of them turned to look at Kaer Morha. Kaer Morha took refuge in a cell. Surprisingly, there was a lone blood beast inside. He didn't want to be bitten by a vampire even in death, so he aimed the gun at himself. Rasputin, as the savior who brought down Kaer Morha, successfully became the leader of the vampires. It turned out that Kaer Morha was played by him, but Kaer Morha wouldn't die easily. His body was uncovered, and he was holding a vial in his hand. It turns out Kaer Morha faked his death and joined the rebellion with a completely new identity. He even captured the Count in a brothel, and in front of the rebellion, Kaer Morha fired several shots at him. Then he cut his palm and fed him blood, and the bullet holes on the Count's body gradually healed. As a result, Kaer Morha gained the support of the rebellion and fought against the vampires together. Meanwhile, the leader encountered Rasputin, the powerful saint who underestimated the situation by mistakenly consuming champagne laced with liquid silver. He was killed by the leader and his followers. On the other side, Kaer Morha learned that Sasha was going to have a wedding, and all the important vampires would be present. This was a great opportunity to annihilate them in one fell swoop, and the rebellion nervously deployed their plan. They mobilized all their resources and produced a batch of weapons specifically designed for the vampires. On the day of the wedding, everyone stood outside, waiting for the bride, but when the wedding car opened, a sudden burst of flame erupted. A wave of fully armed soldiers appeared. They were wearing special gear. They unleashed a massacre at the wedding. The romantic wedding march played continuously. The scene resembled a living hell. Blood was sprayed everywhere. Kaer Morha held a flamethrower and looked at Sasha. He chased after Sasha into the hotel. Sasha ran to the second floor to get a weapon. He prepared for a final resistance. He was brave and skilled in battle. He killed each pursuer one by one. Just as Sasha was feeding on an enemy's blood, an enraged Kaer Morha arrived. He sprayed him wildly with a flamethrower. Sasha writhed in pain on the ground. Kaer Morha walked over and stepped on his head. He took off his mask, revealing his cheek scratched by the blood monster. Just as he was about to end Sasha's life, the bride suddenly appeared. Kaer Morha looked at Alina, uncertain how to react. Only then did they understand the misunderstanding. Because Sasha had been meddling, they had never known the other was alive. Only the circumstances had changed. Kaer Morha took out the ring hanging around his neck. He wanted to put it on his beloved girl, but she was immediately burned by the silver rain. Only then did he realize Alina had become a vampire, and she had fallen in love with Sasha. Alina broke free from Kaer Morha and walked towards her husband. Kaer Morha was very angry. He raised his gun and fired wildly. Alina stood in front of Sasha. She was fatally shot by a silver bullet. Kaer Morha held her and cried in pain. After this blood-soaked wedding, as the leader, he became famous through this battle. He was regarded as a hero by the rebel forces. Only then did Kaer Morha understand Peter's words. It was a brutal uprising. There was no way to end the tragedy. He looked at the wealthy people present. He felt genuine sorrow. The Third Bureau was merely their henchman. Eliminating the vampires couldn't change the situation. The people would still be oppressed. Kaer Morha opened the box in his hand. He abruptly threw it to the ground. A tremendous explosion erupted. Everything fell into silence. The film ends here. This series has a similar style to the Gogol series. It combines magical elements with intense bloody scenes. Along with a tough male protagonist, it has a realistic and impactful ending. It doesn't fall into cliches. If you enjoy my channel, please give me a subscription.